License to Kill by Jonathan Miles. What the two men wanted to know, the gunpoint question that kept shouting at him over and over again, was whether Addie was government. No, Addie kept saying no, trying but plainly failing to explain the distinction between a government and a multinational non-profit foundation. Only when he said, "I'm just here to shoot the goats," did the shouting finally ebb. The men stood frowning at each other, and then back at Addie, until the one without the gun broke into croaks of laughter. Then the gunman laughed too. "The goats?" he said, casting the spotlight briefly down to where Addie's rifle was lying beside him in the sand. Addie said, "The Foundation. They sent me here for 5 weeks, to eradicate the goats." Again the men traded glances before crumpling into deeper laughter. Addie was beginning to apprehend they were drunk. Owing to the glare of the spotlight, he couldn't make out much else about them except that both were shirtless and the gunman's face and arms and even hands appeared to be covered in tattoos. "You're on Santa Flora," the gunman said slowly, "to kill goats." "Shit, that's crazy," said the other, still laughing, wiping his eye. Addie's headlamp beam flashed upon the gun's muzzle, its cyborg eye just 2 meters from his sternum. His mouth felt so cobwebbed he wasn't sure he could speak. Please, yes, that's right. "That was you we saw," the gunman said. "That was you dragging a dead goat around the other day." And with this, Addie registered that these men must be the fishermen he'd spotted out at sea, presumably the nasty bastards the captain had warned him about. "That was me," he said. "Yes, killing goats," the gunman said acidly, still shy of convinced. He swirled the pistol around as though to encompass the beach, the mountains, the island. "Here." "That's what they hired me to do," Addie said. "Who did?" "The Foundation." The other one asked, "They pay you for that?" Addie nodded toward the voice. "How much?" The man greeted the amount with a low whistle. "Shit, that's crazy." "Not bad for 5 weeks at a shooting gallery," the gunman said. The men clearly weren't from the capital, Addie thought. No one there would deem his salary worthy of a whistle. "Where's your camp?" "On the other end of the island." "Where's your boat? We didn't hear any boat." "I don't have a boat." "You crossed the island on foot?" Addie nodded. "Shit, that's crazy," the other man said. The gunman asked again, "You're not government?" "You look like government." "That's a government haircut." "I'm just here to shoot the goats," Addie said. "That's my job, I swear." The gunman clicked off the spotlight, and as Addie's eyes adjusted, he could finally make out the man's face in the firelight. Lean and slop-mouthed, and almost entirely inked with smudgy-looking tattoos. The tattoos flowed down onto his shirtless chest, hollow and hairless, and sleeved a pair of rangy, veiny arms. Whatever a government looked like, this was its opposite. He swished the pistol at Addie, grinning a gap-toothed smile. "Then welcome to Campo Langosta, I guess. Shittiest resort in the Pacific, but the drinks are free. You might as well stay for some." "But," stalling, fumbling, wanting anything anywhere else in the world. Come on," the gunman growled, turning and walking and beckoning with the pistol for Addie to follow. "Seems we're all in the slaughter together." The men claimed a pair of folding chairs set beside the campfire. Addie found a seat on a big knob of driftwood. Almost immediately, the gunman went rummaging through a small tackle box beneath his chair, while the other man passed an unlabeled liter of clear liquid to Addie. Addie sniffed it and winced. "Cut-rate aguardiente," he guessed, not ruling out kerosene. Though he wanted none of it. His invitation to drink had been at gunpoint. He took a pinched sip while stealing glances at the gunman, who, after piercing a cigarette filter with a syringe needle, was drawing something liquid from the shot glass. When the gunman was done, he tossed the cigarette filter over his shoulder and set the syringe on his knee and wiggled his left arm like he was trying to shake the tattoos off it. The gunman went by Grejo, Addie gathered after a while. Grejo called the other men Barrigan, other times Hulk, but mostly he called him Chucky. "Those are some candy shoes," Grejo said, junting his chin towards Addie's feet while trying what looked like to be a length of thick fishing leader round his bicep. Addie looked down at his hiking boots with their split-grain leather and polyurethane midsoles and skidded his feet back toward the driftwood. Like one of his former fourth graders called out, on a pair of outmoded sneakers. But the way Grejo was leering at them kindled a new fear that the men could rob and kill him for his rifle, his pack, his candy shoes, with hardly any jeopardy at all. Even if they left his body here by the campfire, it wouldn't be discovered for more than a month, if ever. Caressing his elbow crook and still eyeing Addie's shoes, Grejo said, "You must be from the capital." Addie turned away as the needle found its vein, scanning the other man for a reaction, but finding none. Chucky's face was pockmarked and flat-browed, with heavy, sagging eyelids that might have been extra weighted by the liquor. He sat with his legs splayed wide to accommodate a big sunburned belly that bounced up and down when he laughed, which was frequently and haphazardly, like hiccups. "Where are you from?" Addie asked him. He merely craned his neck sideways as if to say, "That way." "It's a long way from anywhere to fish," Addie said, trying to make conversation but instantly regretting the potential suspicion in his tone. To patch it up, he added, "The fishing must be good here." "It's a long way from the capital to pop goats," said Grejo. Despite the rebuke, his voice already sounded mellower, syrupy even. He shrugged with one shoulder, still gently plunging the syringe contents into his arm. "You go where the fishes go." Another shrug. "The fishes go here." "What are you shooting?" Chucky said, twirling a thick finger at Addie's rifle. "Is that a 30-06? Hand it over this way." Addie flinched but passed it to him. At the moment, he wasn't worried about the man turning the rifle on him, though later it occurred to him how quickly his own murder could have been deemed as suicide. The loneliness must have broken our poor Mr. Killer. The sailors would cluck over his body. His son dying, then his wife leaving him, his former colleagues would say, shaking their heads. The hurt was just too much for him. Chucky was inspecting the rifle, turning it over in his hands. He aimed it over the fire and mimed a shot. Bam! Then he asked Addie, "How many goats do you kill in a day?" "Oh, just a few so far. I've just started." "A few?" A grunt. "I could kill 50 from right here, sitting in my underwear. They could give me your job." "Probably so," Addie said. "German optics," he said admiringly. "Bet you could see straight up a lizard's skirt with that scope." Up and down went his belly. "Shit, that's crazy." He passed the rifle back to Addie, followed by the leader of Aguardiente. Even a dribble of it scalded Addie's throat, and he was unable to hide his grimace. Chucky noticed and chortled as he reclaimed the bottle. "Mother's milk," he said, waggling his eyebrows. Then he pointed at Addie's forehead and asked, "What happened to your face?" Addie's fingers jumped to the arc-shaped scab where the rifle scope had kicked him, and to keep it hidden he stuck them there a while. "Oh, that," he said. "I fell. I tripped on some wet rocks." "Bet they gave you extra hazard pay for that," he said. In the smoky near distance by their hut, Addie could make out a dozen soot-colored triangles hanging on a line of rope, strung like drying laundry. For a moment he mistook them for flags until he saw another dozen spread atop a wooden pallet. He squinted, then blenched. These were shark fins, he grasped, vaguely aware that the government had outlawed shark finning years ago. Once or twice a year, the newspapers ran stories about the cratering shark populations and the government's efforts to stem the illegal trade. "What are you fishing for?" he asked, opting to play dumb. "Tuna?" "Sure," said Grejo, flinging the spent syringe into the fire. He smiled. "Tuna." "Tuna sharks," said Chucky, jellying himself with laughter. "We catch what people want to buy," Grejo said. "Not what the government tells us to catch, all you cocksuckers in the capital." "They're fins," Addie said, raising the finger per his old wont, as though God would want to explain any of this. "Yeah, fins. The Chinese are crazy for shark fins. The government's crazy in the other direction." "Cocksuckers," Chucky mumbled, cradling the bottle atop his belly, nestling its spout in his shiny cleavage. Grejo leaned forward and said, "Tell me something," his voice beginning to ooze out of him now, as the effects of whatever he'd injected started to take hold. The roundness and stillness of his eyes reminding Addie of the muzzle that, just 15 minutes before, had been glowering at his chest. "The people that hired you, what have they got against the goats?" "They're invasive," Addie said. "The goats aren't supposed to be here." "Says who? The government?" "Says nature." Grejo sank scowling back into his chair as though stung by Addie's answer. "Says nature. I've been on the water since I was 8 years old, and here's what I know. He waved away, smoke drifting into his face. Nature don't give a fuck. Addie combined a nod with a shrug, the most neutral response he could muster. No one even lives here, said Chucky, trying to light a cigarette but foiled by a laugh. What I'm saying is, nature don't give a fuck, said Greyhoe, his tone different now, hotter, ignited by something. Maybe by whatever was floating through his bloodstream. Addie didn't know. Greyhoe snapped his fingers for the cigarettes to be passed and lit one, but after a single long drag, Addie noticed never smoked it again, instead clasping it between his fingers like a personal incense stick. He said, "It don't give a fuck." For what felt to Addie like an awfully long while, they sat together in a flickering silence broken only by the fire's hiss and crackle and the other man's random chortles, bubbling out of him like venting gases. Addie spent this time wondering how he might escape them. Could he slip away tonight, if and when they passed out, or would that constitute some kind of mortal offense? And could he even make it back in the dark? The men were loose-brained now, dulled by aguardiente and whatever narcotic Greyhoe had shot into himself. But the morning sun might deliver a hard-nosed clarity, the kind that could get Addie killed. Whether or not he wanted to go on living was a question that had been lashing him ever since his son died, but this felt separate from that. Addie was certain he didn't want to be murdered. "I'm thinking something funny," Greyhoe finally said, flinging the unsmoked cigarette into the fire and flashing Addie a dim, groggy smile. Addie said, "What's that?" "They're paying you." "What, doctor's wages to shoot up a bunch of goats with a $1,000 rifle?" he said. Addie started to correct the doctor's wages, but Greyhoe kept on. "Well, we're spending every goddamn minute looking over our shoulder for naval patrols. Spending half our profits paying them off. Spending the other half chugging all the way to goddamn Esmeraldas to avoid inspection, and spending the third half we don't even have paying off the harbor master there. Sleeping with this." He yanked out the pistol from where it had been tucked into the back of his shorts and brandished it beside his jaw. "Every night on my goddamn pillow like it's a girlfriend, like it needs a kiss goodnight and a kiss good morning." Without removing his eyes from Addie, he turned his head to kiss the barrel, then slowly lowered it until it was pointed level with Addie's forehead. "For what, huh? For what? I'm asking you a question." "I don't know." Only now, studying Greyhoe's face for any signal that the trigger was about to be pulled, did Addie finally make out the tattoos overspreading it. They were sea creatures, all of them. A moray eel coiled across his forehead, an octopus on one cheek, a jellyfish on the other, a scallop shell on his chin, an open-mouthed tiger shark poised to clamp his jugular vein, a giant manta ray winged across his heart. Even his trigger finger was marked with the ocean, the leg of a starfish. Above the muzzle, Addie watched Greyhoe's eyes twitch, watched his mouth compress into a thin, hard line. The other man's expression might clue him into the threat of the situation, Addie thought, but he didn't dare glance away. Without blinking, he watched Greyhoe's face and the muzzle trembling together in the firelight. "For sharks," he finally said, like the punchline to a joke Addie didn't understand. With a snort, he pointed his left finger at his neck, where the tiger shark swam. "For a few fucking sharks." All Addie could do was swallow while across Greyhoe's face spread the most vacant smile he'd ever seen. That's funny, right? Only when the gun dropped, eventually, coming to rest atop Greyhoe's thigh, did Addie realize he hadn't been breathing. Air leaked from his lungs as if from a slashed tire. "See, somebody in the government says we need more sharks," he went on, "and somebody else says we need fewer goats. More sharks, less goats." The smile returned, broader and toothier this time, almost ghoulish in the firelight. "So they pay you for what you're doing, and for what I'm doing, they try to seize my boat and dump me in a prison for 20 years, even though it's the same thing. The same goddamn thing." He leaned forward to put the gun back into his shorts, the whole time wagging his head. "So that's what's funny," he said. "That's what." No one spoke until Chucky shuddered his head, and this time, without laughing, said, "Shit, that's crazy."